This morning in my newsfeed, I read the story of where the Girl Scouts of America had tweeted a congratulations to Amy Coney Barrett for becoming only the 5th woman in history to be appointed to the United States Supreme Court. Seems like exactly the kind of thing the Girl Scouts would want to be behind, doesn't it? A woman in power, a woman achieving one of the highest offices that can possibly be held in our land. However, within just hours, they had received thousands of negative responses, the Girl Scouts, for their tweet. People were angry. They were infuriated that the Girl Scouts had supported Judge Barrett. Cancel culture is defined as a popular practice of withholding support or canceling public figures and companies after they have done or said something that's objectionable or perhaps offensive. Cancel culture is generally discussed as taking place on social media and in group sharing. The cancel culture may have begun initially as directed towards businesses and public figures, but it almost immediately pivoted to something that targets everyday people in the style of everyone's worst grade school nightmare. Unfriended, blocked, or actively attacked, many of us today have felt the burn of a cancel. Now, manipulation and bullying are certainly not a new thing, but they've taken on a whole new life in this age of social media. People's lives and livelihoods can and are being devastated by rants and memes levied across the anonymous and unaccountable arena of cyberspace. But hey, this is nothing new. This is not a revelation I'm sharing with you on Thursday Thoughts. You already knew this. What we want to ponder today is how we got to this point and try, by extrapolation, to figure out what lessons we should all learn from the mess that we've created for ourselves. Perhaps by talking amongst ourselves about this, we can begin to make a difference in your own sphere of influence. And we can begin to ask the question and do something about why it is that we can't disagree and still be friends. My neighbor Dave is a philosophy professor. The other day we were talking out at the end of the driveway and had to move into the garage here because it was raining. That's why I'm shooting the video in the garage today, by the way. And I said to him, "Hey Dave, why do you think it is that we can't disagree and still be friends as a people and as a culture?" Now let me paint the picture just a little bit. Dave and I come from opposite ends of the political and sociological spectrum. Our ways of thinking are polar opposite, yet we get along great. So in response to my question, why is it that people can't disagree and still be friends? He said, well, it has everything to do with parenting. Okay, you got my attention, Dave. And so here's what he went on to say. He said, we live in a culture where kids don't have free play. And so what he was saying was this. In the 80s, developed this concept of helicopter parenting. And that was the idea where parents basically hovered over their children and fixed all of their problems. Anything that happened, boom, the parents were right there. Anything that seemed to go wrong, boom, mom and dad are on it. Make them happy, give them everything they want, just hovering right over top of it. The child didn't really have that opportunity to find themselves or interact with other kids in a way where they had to solve problems. Mom and dad jumped right in and solved it for them. But that generation was followed by something far more insidious, and that's what he referred to as lawnmower parents, or for those of you up north, snowplow parents. In this style of parenting, the parents actually go ahead of their children and mow down any obstacle they may ever encounter. They plow anything out of the way that may get in the way of their children's total happiness and ease of life. In other words, anything they may need is already there for them. So, as it works out, any sort of a problem the child may counter, the parents, they've already solved it. If there's a kid they may disagree with, they make sure they don't have to engage them. They're way over there. If there's a place where their child may encounter a challenge or have to fix something, it's already done by mom and dad. So kids not only didn't have to solve problems, they really didn't encounter major problems in their life. Parents had already taken care of it for them. In a sense, check it out, the parents had canceled problems and canceled issues before the kids ever had to encounter them. Okay, so the second element that's gone into creating this environment where we can't disagree and still be friends has to do with these people that I call social media snipers. They're the folks who are so full of hostility and anger and resentment, and they go out and they find people with whom to disagree. They go on social media and they find a comment or a post that they don't like or they deem offensive, and they attack that person. In essence, what they're doing is they're making an enemy where they didn't need to have one. Now, this has probably happened to you because I know it's happened to me. And that's where I've posted something that was innocent, or I've responded to something in a way that I thought was helpful that somebody chose to take offense with and then turn around and attack me full bore. I call it going from 0 to 100 right now. Instead of trying to work it out in a relationship or have a discussion, maybe even a debate, people go from 0 to 100. They go from we're a friend to I hate you, or more common, from I've never met you before to I hate you and you're my enemy. This kind of behavior is utterly and completely inconsistent to what we see in Scripture. Jesus' words about bearing one another's burdens, Jesus' words about forgiving, and Paul's words to Titus in Titus chapter 3. Okay, the third element of this matter of disagreeing and not being friends anymore has implications with regards to the First Amendment and the liberty of being able to express ourselves. So I made some notes so I wouldn't stumble over my words. When temper tantrums by offended people mean that you cannot express an opinion or offer an opposing point of view for fear of harm, that's what canceling is. It's seeking to harm you. If we live in fear of that, then really that's bullying or tyranny. The second part of that to think about is, how does this intersect with the golden rule of Scripture where Jesus is saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you? That's in Luke 6:31, by the way. And then more broadly, what would our nation look like in just one generation from today if we as people have not learned how to have opposing points of view and still be friends? Imagine your freedom to express is treated exactly the same way that you treat people with whom you differ right now. If that golden rule, in other words, is set aside, then the way cancel culture treats one another is exactly the way that you should always expect to be treated. And that would be a tremendous loss of our freedom, of our First Amendment, of our liberty. It's a loss of an opportunity for Jesus followers to demonstrate what it is to disagree and still be friends. Now, there's a verse from Amos that I think is worth pondering as we get ready to close. So Amos chapter 3, verse 3 reads like this: Do two walk together unless they have agreed to meet? Now, what Amos is really getting across to is if you're going to walk together, if you're going to spend time together, if you're going to do life together, you have to have some agreements with one another. And what I would love to see is for you as a Jesus follower or an interested follower of this podcast to start doing this, pondering the way that you treat other people when it comes to your differences. How am I choosing to engage with people when we differ? That's an agreement. So we agree on these things and we can walk together. If you don't think about it ahead of time, what's going to take place is you're going to have a disagreement with somebody. How you parent, politics, what's for dinner, how you drive the car, how you relate to this, that, or the other. If you differ, you run the challenge, okay? You run the risk of going 0 to 100. You run the risk of not wanting to spend time with somebody because you disagree. You run the risk of silencing them or being silenced yourself because instead of two agreeing together, you've decided that if we disagree, you have become my enemy. Friends, that's not the Jesus way of living in our culture. So that's the question I'm asking you in your life group, in your dinner group, or if you use Thursday Thoughts as your personal devotion from time to time. I want you to ponder this. You ready? Here goes the question. How am I treating the people with whom I disagree? How am I treating the people with whom I disagree? And really, conversely, how would I want them to treat me when I disagree with them? That's the question. That's the golden rule. And if we can solve that, we're going to be able to disagree and still be friends, which would be remarkable in our culture today. That's what I want you to chat about this week. Thank you for listening. This has been Thursday Thoughts. I'm Pastor Shannon. I look forward to talking with you next week. Until then, go in peace.